Looking back on the week that was and forward to the week ahead. It's the Fantasy Football Hustle. Here are your hosts, Brian Drake and Dwain McFarland.
All across the fantasy universe, welcome one and all to the Fantasy Football Hustle, powered by Pro Football Focus. I am your humble host, Brian Drake, FightingChanceFantasy.com, joined as always by the man, the myth, the legend, the analytical assassin, the man who's going to take down the poker tournament at the Fantasy Football Expo, the one and only Dwain McFarland. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Oh man, I'm doing good. I don't know if I'll take it down. Like, there's a lot of people playing in that, and like Drew's playing in it, and they've been playing a lot more poker than me. But I'm certainly excited about going and playing in it.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast out there at the Expo. Dwain and I are going to get to hang out. We're going to see all our favorite folks and just have a good time. And that's what fantasy football is all about. It's a good time. It's a way to express yourself with your friends. You're going to have a blast. Most importantly, you're going to kick some ass and win. That's what we do here on the Hustle. We want you to listen. We want you to learn. We want you to win your damn league. I'm going to copyright that, Dwain. That's going to be our new slogan for 2022 is listen, learn, win your damn league. And we're heading into 4th of July. So that means, there's going to be a lot of news dumps. I'm sure the Deshaun Watson news will come out this weekend because everyone's on vacation. They're sipping beers by the pool and all that. But there's some burning questions in fantasy. And while you're relaxing this weekend, we kind of want to get your mind right, get Dwain's thoughts around these hot topics in the NFL. And more importantly, Dwain, we want to know, what are you drinking for the 4th of July weekend?
Man, I don't know. I haven't planned that far ahead, Drake. I don't know that I'm going to do a lot of drinking. I did the beach last week, and we were in Florida with the fam under an umbrella a lot. I had quite a few beers there. So this week I've kind of like laid off. I think I've had one beer all week. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, I'm getting old, Drake. So I don't know. It'll be something generic. It'll be like a Miller Lite or something that the audience doesn't want to hear about.
No, I'm hungover as hell right now. Full disclosure, as we record the show, we had our first half championship for our golf league last night. And my partner and I, shout out Brian Dwyer, he does the golf projections over at Fantasy Alarm. And we took it down, won the league. And I also, your boy, won the long drive contest last night, 324 yards. Got me a cool $25. Yeah. Pounded the shit out of that one.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm a little hungover this morning as we record, but we're going to power through. And when you were sitting on the beach last week, Dwain, and you were tweeting out pictures of your feet in the water, I know you were drafting a shit ton of fantasy teams over at Underdog because you were tweeting out some of your most drafted players. And
I was actually doing DraftKings last week. But yes, the Underdog is our favorite. I wanted to do full PPR.
Okay.
And I had plenty of cash just sitting in the old DraftKings account. So that I decided, hey, I want to do some full PPR because Underdogs is half PPR. And Underdog's still, it's obvious our fave. But we have a lot of different people at PFF to play all the different contests. So trying to cover all the contests right that people play and be able to speak like intelligently about it. You know me, I believe that you need to have skin in the game to really do that. And so that was my objective because I knew I was going to have plenty of Underdog drafts the rest of the way. Don't know how much more DraftKings I will do, but wanted to at least get some of those, completed.
When we first signed up to start working with Underdog, our thing was, hey, we want to have a high stakes contest, because that's what a lot of our listeners are into. We know we're big with guys in the FFPC and, Dwayne's big in the Football Guys Players Championship. Well, they just announced at Underdog a $500 entry fee slow draft called the Bulldog. So I know a lot of our listeners are going to start jumping into that. Have you seen this, Dwain?
Yeah, I did see it. And they made it a slow draft though. And I know like if you're filling up for $500, like you want to draft at a time that, you can draft, but, and I don't know that you could fill one up like, just like that, with $500, but I love the fast draft. But having said that, yes, man, that's really cool. I'm considering, getting an entry. So we'll have to think about that.
Yes, and if you want to get in over at Underdog, maybe you don't want to spend $500, you just want $5. They got a new Superflex puppy draft. So it's that $5 entry you love, but now Superflex. So go over, use promo code HUSTLE. It's going to get you up to $100 entry doubled on your initial deposit. So easy. Go over there, plop down $100. Dwayne and I are going to match it. You're going to have $100 extra in your account. What's not to love? Enjoy the 4th of July with the hustle with Underdog. Use promo code hustle. Deposit match up to $100. Let's talk about some of these burning questions here because, as we said, it's going to be news dump o'clock here soon. And one of the breaking news of the week was Rob Gronkowski retiring. I don't know how long this is going to last, Dwayne. Even his own agent came out and said he wasn't sure how long it's going to last, but we have to go with the news we have at the moment. Last year, Dwayne, Gronk was tight end 8. He averaged just under 10 PPR points per game, and that's with basically taking 4 or 5 weeks off and goose-egged us in week 8. So we know he's Brady's security blanket. Last year, he saw 7 or more targets in 9 of 12 games. They added Russell Gage in the slot. We got Chris Godwin, who's rumored to be on the PUP list out the first 6 weeks. So here we are. We got Russell Gage. We got Mike Evans. We got Cam Brate. I mean, he's seemingly been around forever. He's kind of been an afterthought. You've seen the stat lines for Brate with or without Gronk. He caught 7 balls last year when Gronk didn't play. They drafted a couple of tight ends, but it's kind of fool's gold going after a rookie tight end in fantasy. So, I mean, are you buying this Cam Brate stuff? Is it just because he's there, they have no one else, or are you going to just let somebody else take him?
It just depends on where he ends up, as far as ADP goes. So far, he's gotten a little bit pricey for me because I don't necessarily want to take him over other guys that I think that are similar, right? That are actually better talents. So, for example, Gerald Everett plays in a really good offense with a good quarterback, and he's a better tight end than Cameron Brate. So I want Gerald Everett. He also, plays in that division that we love in the AFC West. Now, the Bucs have a loaded schedule as well. So, 12 teams, if you guys haven't seen this over on PFF, you can go look at it. 12 teams account for 92% of the games right now, projected by Superbook. You can look them up to go over 50 points this year in weeks 1 through 17, which is all we care about, right? That's when the playoffs for fantasy are over, week 17. So I excluded week 18, but 92% of the games projected to go over 50 points belong to 12 teams. 56% of those belong to the AFC West and NFC West, which play each other and will just continue to shoot out with one another all year long. So having said all that, yes, I like Brate. I think he's fine. I just don't want to reach for, I don't think there's a reason to take him over Gerald Everett. I don't think there's a reason to take him over Tyler Higbee. I don't think, that there's really, a reason to take him even over maybe Hayden Hurst. Like that's really where he fits. Maybe you put him just above Hayden Hurst and I would be fine taking, and I'll mix him in with all the guys we just said, but I'm not going to consistently reach for Brate above all of those other guys just because right now the news cycle is fresh and everybody's gravitating to Brate because it's the new news. Rob Gronkowski's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Really, he profiles more similar to the other guys that I named to you. And actually, I think he slots in right behind them because I think they're actually better players.
Yeah, if you look at some of the guys on Underdog going in that category, you've got, Robert Tonyan, who's, getting a clean bill of health in Green Bay.
And I would take Tonyan over him as well.
David Njoku. These guys going just before him. Evan Ingram. We're going to talk about another Jaguar here in a few minutes. And then there's Gerald Everett. So it's a weird group. And
where's Brate going in that? My guess is Brate's
21.
And he's below those guys.
He's just behind them. He's ahead of Hooper, Hurst, Brevin Jordan, and Logan Thomas and CJ Uzoma.
I'll tell everybody he goes above all those. He goes above all those right now. I don't know how long it takes that ADP to adjust because it's got the old data still in there too for Brate, when he wasn't getting drafted at all. So sometimes it can take a while for that to refresh. I don't know Underdog's exact rules of how they update it, but I can tell you, at least on DraftKings, having drafted, 27 different teams, as soon as that Gronk news hit, he shot above all the guys that we just talked about. He was going ahead of all those, and sometimes by 1 and 2 rounds. So that's why I don't have a ton of exposure yet. When he did slide, I was able to put him on a few teams. If I drafted Tom Brady, I had a little bit more interest, then obviously in putting, Brate on the squad. But outside of that, I'm treating him really like that tier we talked about.
You still drafting Gronk in best ball?
I don't mind it. I think if you want to take him, with one of your last 2 picks, I think it's fine. But I don't know. What else is an agent supposed to say? To me, I think the agent's job is, what? I want to keep the door open. I want to keep the phone ringing. I want to keep it warm. That way, if Gronk does change his mind, we're ready to go. Or maybe somebody just calls with an offer that Gronk can't refuse. He's doing the right thing for his client. I don't know, though. I mean, do we really? I don't know how to gauge whether or not we think Gronkowski is coming back. I just don't know how to appropriately do that. And we don't know when it will be, right? Like, what if it's like week 11, week 12? Then, yeah, you get him for your playoffs, but you've already been through a whole season without him. So I don't know. Like, I think it's fine based on a roster build. If you've got two okay tight end, maybe it might be one where you do four, right? All of a sudden Gronk lands in the last round of your draft and you're like, fine, I'll take Gronk as my fourth tight end because my tight ends are weak. But if I've already got Darren Waller, or I've already got, George Kittle or Kyle, if I've got Pitts, if I've got any of the top guys on my team, I'm not drafting Gronk at the end of a draft.
Let's move it along here, Dwayne. You made a little social media news last week with a quote you had about Javonte Williams that went viral through PFF, where they talked about, if you follow PFF on Instagram with I believe it's at PFF or at PFF_fantasy, you had a little nugget there where you said Javonte Williams at ADP in round 3 is a smash. People were up in arms with this, Dwayne. Who is this idiot? Round 3, where do you see Javonte Williams going in the 3rd round? I don't know if you people ever noticed this about my friend Dwayne here. He actually knows what he's talking about. And if you look at the ADP, yes, the guy was going in round 3. Today, he's on underdog. He's RB 14. That's still pick 27. It's not like he's going in the 1st round. So, I mean, people are going crazy. If I had 1 or 2 Miller Lights, I was going to start firing back at him. But figure out, I'm going to be cooler. I'm going to let things go. You've got him ranked, Javonte Williams, we're talking about here, as RB 10 in your new 150, which is up over at PFF.com. And if you want to get into that article, use promo code HUSTLE. We're going to save you 25% off a PFF Edge subscription. It's going to get you the locked articles, going to get you the rankings, going to get you the tiers. And when Mr. McFarland puts out a 150, you're going to want to read it. And Dwayne, you're going to be updating that 150 pretty soon, right?
Yes, it'll be updated next week again. So like all my tiers and everything will be updated next week. That's my focus for the first week of July after the 4th.
I'm sure we'll get a show in about that. So you've got, like we said, him in your 150 at RB10. New coaching staff in Denver, obviously a new quarterback. They did bring back Melvin Gordon, but it wasn't for anything mind-blowing. They let him sit on the street for months. The idea here, though, is Javonte Williams is the lead back. It's his role. We're not looking at this 50-50 split like we had last year. I mean, do you think that's the right way to look at Javonte Williams, as this is his backfield, it's his show, Gordon's just kind of there for a breather, and it's all wheels up for Javonte Williams in 2022?
Yeah. First of all, I didn't even know I created any kind of situation on social media. I honestly ignore it a lot. Like I'm there to try to put out really, the best content I can. And I know it's funny, like how many people will come out of the woodworks. And a lot of times, look, it is what it is. I'm not going to go have an argument with these people, because they are fantasy football fans and I'm here to try, to help. But at the same time, especially at this time of year, I've noticed this in the past. If you haven't been drafting, right, you just don't really know. Or if you just did a draft a long time ago and you thought Javonte was a 1st round pick still, it's funny, some of the feedback I get around Javonte as well, the 3rd round is too early. He should be a 4th round pick, right?
Really?
And other times it's like, oh no, you can't get him in the 3rd round pick. You can't get him in the 3rd. He goes in the 1st or he goes in the 2nd. And it does depend on where you're drafting. FFPC, he's going to go in the 2nd round. You go over on Underdog, he's a 3rd round pick. You go over onto DraftKings, he's a 3rd round pick. So it just really depends on where you're on where you're drafting. Even on FFPC, sometimes he'll slide to the end of that 2nd round. But so anyway, just a quick note about which format you're playing on and the time of year that we're dealing with right now as people are warming back up to fantasy football. But yeah, as far as Javonte goes, look, the Melvin Gordon thing just does not bother me that much. And the reason why is because it took so long. Basically what the Broncos told Melvin Gordon is, look, dude, you go see if you can do better. We don't think you can. If you can't, we like you. We'll bring you back, but we're not going to pay you a lot of money. And they didn't. They bring him back on a 1-year deal. We've already heard now Cecil Lammey come out and talk about rumblings he's hearing in the building. He's not saying this is going to happen, but he's come out and said that, look, he's hearing, whispers that, look, Javonte's taking over this backfield. And Cecil's somebody that, has shared those sort of tidbits in the past, and I've acted on them. And so maybe I am a little bit biased towards the information he shares because he's given me some fantasy championship gold in the past, specifically going back to Julius Thomas and the days there, going back to Noshawn Moreno when he spilled information around that. CJ Anderson, he was well ahead of the pack on.
Where was he when I drafted Monty Ball in the first round a few years ago?
He was there. He was telling you to not draft him.
Thanks, Cease. I must have missed that episode with him and Sig.
Yeah. So, so anyway, it's a situation where basically you've got a running back. The underlying data points profile very similar to Jonathan Taylor. They profile similar to Nick Chubb, some of the best pure running backs in the game. People will argue Javonte doesn't have their, vision and other things. And that does show up when you watch him on film. Like there are plays where you're like, dude, you did all that and got 15 yards. You could have just done this simple thing and maybe got a 50-yarder. But at the end of the day, if he can already put up these great underlying metrics, despite the fact that he doesn't even necessarily know how to read an offensive line yet, to me, that just means untapped upside. You know what I mean? Some might think, well, that means that Melvin Gordon's going to get on the field. And maybe that could happen. And that's why you get him in the third round, is because Melvin Gordon is back. Because if Melvin Gordon was not back, Javonte Williams would be a first-round pick. In fact, we already saw that. He was going at the end of the first round over in FFPC drafts before Melvin Gordon signed. So I love it in the third round, Drake, especially let's say you start off with Cooper Kupp. You come back, or Justin Jefferson, you come back in the second round, and let's say like Mike Evans or Deebo Samuel, somebody like that falls to you. You want to start off, you just want to pound receiver. Maybe you want to go Mark Andrews, right? Maybe you want to go with Mark Andrews, and you're like, hey, I want to have an elite tight end, elite wide receiver, and I want a chance to smash my running back pick. If you want a chance to smash your running back pick, it's Javonte Williams, because I will tell you, if he takes over 60 to 65% of this backfield, which is totally possible. That still leaves, Drake, 25%, for Melvin Gordon. It leaves some there for Russell Wilson, and potentially another back to get a few carries like Mike Boone. So this is the kind of split that we will see for typical RB1s in the league. People think, when Javonte Williams has to get 80% of the work. No, he doesn't. If he gets 60 to 65% an improved Denver attack with Russell Wilson now leading the way in a division that's going to have to score touchdowns, you're going to have to shoot out quite often. Like, man, he screams everything we want. You got the profile. You got the team environment. The only thing holding him back is Melvin Gordon. And again, that's why you get him in the third round. But if it hits Drake, dude, he can be a top three. He can be a top three running back. And if you get that in the third round after you started with Justin Jefferson, and then you've come back with Mike Evans or Mark Andrews, and now you've got a top three running back, that's how you win your league. They're not, the term league winning's overused. But Javonte really does deserve it.
We had a question here, and we always respect the guys who come into our YouTube chat, and we want you guys to go over to youtube.com and find Fantasy Football Hustle, subscribe to the channel. Matthew Bingham, Dwayne, he's got a question about Nathaniel Hackett and the pace of offense that he believes Hackett runs. He says here, Green Bay has been near the bottom in situation neutral pass under Hackett as OC. How do you see that going forward in Denver? I could throw in this tidbit as Nathaniel Hackett was once the offensive coordinator here in Syracuse, where I live, just a few years ago, like the 1 year we had a decent team. And I can tell you this, the running backs caught the football a lot in that offense. So I think that's something also that's a plus for Mr. Williams. But thoughts on the pace of play here for Nathaniel Hackett and this offense in Denver?
Yeah, I think the pace of play will be average to below average, but the efficiency is going to be good. And you're going to be dealing with a good team, and you're also going to be dealing with a team that's going to be forced to probably get out of their comfort zone some and really have to push the pace at times, because you're going to play against Patrick Mahomes twice. You're going to play against Justin Herbert twice. You're going to play against Derek Carr with a reshuffled offense twice. You're then going to have to play against Matt Stafford and the Rams. You have to play against Trey Lance or whoever's at quarterback for the 49ers, but they're projected to win 10 games, right? So you can't just come out flat against the 49ers, and then you're going to get to play against the Cardinals. So I just don't see a way where Denver can completely sit back on their heels, right? I think neutral, yes, you will see something similar, but how often will they really be in a neutral type script? I don't know. But at the end of the day, even if Denver's really good and they get to stay in the type of pace of play they want, that will mean things are going well for them. Yeah. That will mean they're scoring a lot of touchdowns. That will mean they're staying in games. I guess the opposite thing you could say is, their defense really comes through big. But here's the deal. I don't really care how good your defense is. If you have to play that many good quarterbacks, it's not going to matter. It's really just not, because the league's built for the quarterbacks. The league's built for the offense. And it's very rare. Look, there are exceptions every year where we have defenses that all of a sudden are really staunch and cause major problems. I think Denver's going to be a solid defense. It's not a defense that I'm scared of.
Another player who has the hype train running at full steam right now is Gabriel Davis in Buffalo. This Bills wide receiver has an underdog ADP of 24. He's going before such receivers as Terry McLaurin, congrats on the new contract, DK Metcalf, sorry about your luck with the Drew Lock, Deontay Johnson, and Allen Robinson. Dwayne, that's pretty rich for a guy who caught 35 balls during the regular season last year. Now, he never caught more than 5 balls per game during the regular season. This hype is built by 2 things. Number 1, Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley are gone, so Davis is going to be playing nearly every down. And 2, his postseason was insane. Remember, he caught a playoff record 4 touchdowns in the Bills' overtime loss to the Chiefs. The week prior, he only caught 2 balls in the wild card game against the Pats, but 1 did go for a score. So 5 playoff touchdowns is something very fresh in fantasy football players' minds here. So, Dwayne, we love to target guys in high-octane offenses. The Bills obviously fit that mark. You've got him at wide receiver 28 in your top 150, but is the market going a little overboard on Gabe Davis compared to these other elite wide receivers that he's going ahead of?
At this point, I think it's starting to get that way, but it's just again, we've talked about this. It's a very unique year at wide receiver. When you have DJ Moore playing with Sam Darnold, DK Metcalf playing with Drew Lock and Geno Smith, you got Terry McLaurin gets a small upgrade with Carson Wentz, but he pretty much sucks too. And then you've got who am I missing? Deontay Johnson is going to have to either play with a rookie and Kenny Pickett or scrub Mitch Trubisky. Like, dude, there's a lot of really good receivers that caught, that just caught some bad luck, to be honest, this offseason. And they don't have quarterbacks. So that is the other part of this equation that pushes people like Gabe Davis up. Cortland Sutton goes ahead of those guys now. Marquise Brown goes ahead of those guys now. Mike Williams goes ahead of all those receivers we just named that, guess what, are better. They are all better than Cortland Sutton. They are all better than Mike Williams. They are all better than Gabriel Davis, but their situation isn't just bad. I would say Washington's is bad to below average. The others, their situation is terrible. It's terrible, like what DK Metcalf has to deal with. And so that's what's pushing these guys up. And Gabriel Davis is just another name to add. So it makes for great, social media debates, right? Because we're always looking at talent versus situation. That's why my tiers, I look at both. I'm really looking at talent, looking at situation, all these different things. But here's the thing with Gabe Davis. If you just want to look at his talent profiles, looking at PFF receiver grades in years 1 and 2 and his draft capital, which was round 4, his comps are not great. Darius Slayton, James Washington, Devin Funchess, Torrey Smith, Ruben Randall, Jermaine Kearse. Not good, right? But then you look, like you mentioned, the Buffalo offense might throw the ball more than any other offense in the NFL. Got a great quarterback in Josh Allen. And then when you look at the splits of really, it's less about just capturing the 5 touchdown, the big touchdown game, whatever it was, 4 touchdowns or whatever it was, and more about like, okay, let's look at from the time he actually got to be on the field and run routes. Because through the first part of the season, he was like out there for 30% of the routes. At the end of the year, 84% of the time that the Bills would drop back to pass, he was on the field from week 14 on through the playoffs. He eclipsed 15 fantasy points in 3 of 6 contests, including that 52-point explosion against the Chiefs in the divisional round. If you look at the Bills, 40.5 non-overtime dropbacks per game, that's really huge. That extrapolates to almost 700 dropbacks in a 17-game season. So even if Gabe Davis does not improve in his targets per route run, which is something that we really like to look at for somewhere where we're trying to figure out, could there be a breakout at hand? If he's just on the field for 85% of the time, he's going to get 105 targets in the Bills offense, right? If he's on the field 90% of the time, he's going to get 112 targets. But here's the thing. If he does take a step forward, which is in his range of outcomes, it could happen. If he all of a sudden gets a 20% targets per route run, right? Now you're looking at, if he's on the field just 90% of the time, which is pretty typical for someone in the kind of offense they have where they don't have a ton of depth right now, that'd be 124 targets. But I think the upside is he gets to 22% targets per route run, something around there, 90% of the routes. I mean, now you're looking at 135 targets. So I think, yes, he's getting a little bit steamed, but I also get it because of, again, it's a very unique storm that we have created at the wide receiver position in the middle rounds this year that's creating a lot of flux. And it also creates for a wide range of outcomes in these drafts where I'm mostly getting my exposure to Davis right now is past ADP. It's also the same way I'm getting my exposure to Deontay Johnson. It's the way I'm getting my exposure to Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, all of them. I have not drafted any of those players at ADP. And guess what? If you don't want to and you're going to draft a bunch of teams, you never have to because one of them falls every single draft. I had 3 drafts in a row where Deontay Johnson fell over 12 spots. And I just took him all 3 in a row. I was like, okay, this is where I'm getting Deontay Johnson. Like, I don't want 50% exposure to the player, but if I can get to 10% and it's all around past ADP, basically, I will still take Deontay Johnson. That's the way I treat Gabe Davis as well.
Let's talk about another wide receiver, and that's A.J. Brown, who's now a Philadelphia Eagle. His underdog ADP is wide receiver 11, coming off at pick 25. Now, with Brown, it's someone who we've always bet on efficiency, and that scares me when you bet on efficiency, because in fantasy, you want to bet on, in my mind, you want volume, because volume is king. Devonta Smith last year in Philadelphia saw the most targets at 104. A.J. Brown's career high in Tennessee was 106. And I mean, we know last year A.J. Brown was beat up and all that. The Titans threw the ball 41 more times than the Eagles did last year. So the Eagles should throw the ball more this year. You paid a lot of money to A.J. Brown, but Shane Steichen, who's the offensive coordinator, is the same guy who took the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands mid-season because Jalen Hurts was not doing well throwing the football. So A.J. Brown, people are buying him. It seems, Dwayne, at his perceived ceiling at wide receiver 11. You got an offense now with Dallas Goedert out there, with Devonta Smith, and now A.J. Brown. I don't see him getting 105 targets last year like Devonta Smith did. I don't see him coming through in this offense with this many weapons. They want to run the football. The quarterback's going to run the football a ton. Like, to me, A.J. Brown seems like fool's gold unless he scores 10 or 12 touchdowns, which could he? Sure. But I'm not going to bank on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it's a tough, another player that just got an unfortunate bounce of the ball. Like, let's trade A.J. Brown to the damn Chiefs. Come on. Like, what is up with this crap?
Well, I'm an Eagles fan. I appreciate him on the team. Don't trade him away
yet. I'm sure you do. But here's the thing. He's A.J. Brown, he's a top 5 receiver. He's a top 5 NFL receiver. Like, his underlying data points are that good. He can beat you downfield. He can beat you in the intermediate passing game. He can beat you with yak. He can be tough at the point of attack. Like just a beast of a player. You know, he's one of 4 receivers last year to top 2.50 yards per route run against man and zone coverage. He averaged 16.3 fantasy points per game. And a 31% target share in the games where he was healthy enough to at least run 75% of the routes. That is the big challenge with A.J. Brown. Misses games, also misses parts of games a lot. Honestly, some of the target stuff that we've seen, you know, he would have higher numbers than the ones that, you know, we've talked about had he just been able to stay healthy. So, but it is an added thing, right? A.J. Brown is one of these guys that has these soft tissue injuries that seem to kind of pile up on him throughout the season. So he's got bulky knees, right? He's already got knee trouble. So I think there are enough flags with him that if you want to pass on him, like, I think it's fine. But if you're a flag plant person on talent alone, then look, I think he's priced right. You take him in the mid-3rd round. I mean, that's where the receivers start to drop off. The receivers start to drop off right around there to where now, basically with Brown, you're talking about elite of elite profiles in an okay to maybe bad situation. But to me, like, he's really not that different than Deebo Samuel that people are taking in the 2nd round. I mean, Deebo Samuel has one additional out because the 49ers could supplement touches, you know, in the run game. But really, Deebo was a better fantasy player before he ever started touching the ball in the backfield last year. He averaged 22.1 fantasy points per game when he was really just a receiver. That dropped to 19.4 or something like that, you know, once they started, you know, giving him like 20%, you know, of the snaps at running back. So for me, A.J. Brown, one way to look at him, he's just an arbitrage play on Deebo Samuel. Sometimes you get a full round later. If you want to avoid him, you can. I'm typically just grabbing him below ADP, but I'm going to sprinkle him in at ADP a few times as well. And here's the thing. A season can go a lot of ways. Devonta Smith could get hurt in week 1. And then A.J. Brown all of a sudden is what? I mean, A.J. Brown is what then? You know, Dallas Goedert could get hurt. You know, I mean, there's just a lot of ways. And there is still a chance A.J. Brown just dominates the target share. He is that good. Like, the other 2 guys are okay. And to your point, like, I think the Eagles will throw the ball more this year. I'm not one that believes, oh my God, they're going to be like the Eagles were at the beginning of last season when they dropped back to pass 71% of the time. I don't think that's going to happen. But I also don't think that the Eagles can just afford to, you know, drop back to pass only 40%, you know, like they worked towards. It was insane, like their numbers at the end of last year. So I think they end up somewhere in the middle of those two things, but you do still have an out, right? Where all of a sudden the Eagles do throw the ball quite a bit more than what we saw last year, given how heavy they were in the run game. But I get your concerns. And again, wide receiver is a freaking mess this year in fantasy football. Some of these players are going to hit, but it is harder than ever to really nail down which ones it's going to be once you get to round 3, 4, and 5.
I know that you tweeted out that you've done some drafts lately where you started RB, maybe even RB. And, we'll kind of just let the chips fall where they may at wide receiver. Somebody you might be taking traditionally in that first round is Derrick Henry. Well, last year, everything, that everyone said for years and years and years, Derrick Henry's going to get hurt. You can't get all these touches. He's going to get it. Well, okay, he got hurt. Everyone loves to tout the big workload numbers, and, it finally came through. Before he got hurt, though, Dwain, he was crushing it. He was averaging 24 points a game in the 8 games before injury, which was more than Jonathan Taylor. Now you think Henry had his freaking leg amputated. So someone I remember just tweeted you this week. They saw that Derrick Henry went in the second round, and they were able to pair Austin Eckler in the FFPC with Derrick Henry. So on Underdog, Henry's still going off the board, RB4, ADP of about 7.5. So I get all the narratives, Dwain, but let's look at what we know. The Titans lost A.J. Brown. They got Robert Woods coming off an injury, and you got another rookie on the outside. Coaching staff's the same. Play caller's the same. Going to keep pounding the rock. There's no reason to think Tennessee is going to go away from Henry and this massive workload. That's who they are. Last year, he carried the ball 20 times in every, 20 times in every single game but one, and that includes the playoff game that he came back for. So he did sneak into your top 10 at number 10. Are you in on him? You out on him by draft day? I think when home leagues come back around, he's not going to be sliding in round 2. He's going to kind of be solidified there in between that 5, 6, 7 pick. But why? Yeah. What is going on with the slide?
I'm not really taking him. Dude, I mean, it's just like he's got such a huge workload already on his body. He's going into age 28 season. We know these running backs don't last forever. So it's all about opportunity cost. Do you feel like you have to have Derrick Henry over Stephon Diggs? Do you feel like you have to have Derrick Henry even over Davante Adams? I would rather draft Travis Kelce, because tight ends age better. So it's just, I get it. I will acknowledge that Henry, even at his age with his workload, carries an upside that we don't maybe normally think of because of how good he's been. Look, his underlying peripheral data points are all on the slide, but even though they've slid, they're still above the league average across the board. So even though he's not maybe what he was 2 years ago, he's still an above average NFL running back, to your point, and a team that wants to run the ball. My concern is really, how long can Tennessee stay good? How long can they continue to be good enough to keep Derrick Henry, in game scripts? Now, look, when they're trailing by 4 or more points, they run the ball 10% more than the league average. So they're willing to stick with the run no matter what. But you got to keep the game at least reasonable. 4 points or more is one thing, but all of a sudden, if you're trailing by 10 or more, and I just have big concerns with A.J. Brown gone. We like Treylon Burks, but he's not off to a hot start. With what's happened in minicamp, what happened in OTAs, having asthma, not being able to be on the field. He's falling in ADP. Robert Woods, this old dude coming off an injury. I'm just not sure how good this offense can be, period. And what does that do to the potential scoring opportunities for Derrick Henry, down inside the 5, which is also a really big part of his profile. So I'm fine when Henry slides. That's where I'm going to get my exposure, but I'm definitely not reaching for him in the first round, and I'm also not taking him at ADP.
People often forget Tennessee was the number 1 seed in the AFC last year. It's crazy. I never thought they were any good, but hey, they're
the style of team we've seen over the years that come out and do something like that, and the next year win 6 games. Mm-hmm. We saw it for years in Carolina with the Panthers. You had you've got Ron Rivera there, right? Really just trying to manage these edges, let's not turn the ball over. Let's use smash mouth football. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's hit the big play down the field to Ted Ginn. Well, how'd that work the next year? It wasn't there. And now you're with that A.J. Brown. So I think they're a team that, despite the record and everything they had, and we saw their early exit from the playoffs, because really when they play good teams and they're forced out of what they want to do, it's problematic for Tennessee. So I don't believe in Tennessee, the way that, what their record said last year. I think they're a much more fragile team than that.
That sounds like a great t-shirt to sell right there. Just says, I don't believe in Tennessee. I'm sure you can sell it to a lot of SEC fans or however long the SEC is going to be around. College football is getting crazy. But speaking of t-shirts, Dwayne, you know, it's my Hustle t-shirt here on YouTube.
Yeah, that's a good one.
This is a sharp one.
That's my favorite one. Yeah.
And I got the hat over the shoulder here. So if you guys want some Hustle swag, our pals at Viridian Global are selling t-shirts, hats, stickers, whatever you want with the Fantasy Football Hustle on it. I've got a hoodie over here that I wear all the time. The notes are in the YouTube show link. Just go check there. You'll see it. Go over to Viridian Global, buy a t-shirt, help Dwayne and I out. We really appreciate it. And by the way, shout out to all of those guys who hit us up for his chance to enter the Scott Fish Bowl. We did have a winner. We had folks message us and say what they've done for youth sports or whatever. That's kind of what we wanted to do to separate people in terms of who's going to win the Scott Fish Bowl spot. We did select a winner, but what we did do also is anybody else who applied, we sent you a shirt from the Hustle. And I know the guys got it. They've messaged us. So shout out to Viridian Global. Thank you to the guys who are out there working hard for youth sports. Good luck in the Scott Fish Bowl. So let's go from a running back, Dwayne, that people might not want to draft to one that you're way fired up to draft, and that's Travis Etienne, the second-year Jags back. You recently tweeted that you have 30% exposure to him in drafts this summer, and your quote was, once Javonte Williams is gone, Etienne is the target. And we know Twitter hype is building, and by draft day, his ADP in round 4 will be obliterated. It's again, yeah. Let's look at what we know today. They've got nothing in the backfield besides him. You've got James Robinson coming off an Achilles. You've got Doug Peterson, new head coach. He might want to have multiple running backs. We've talked about that for years on the Hustle. They don't have any other running backs to give it to. You're not giving it to Snoop Connor, the rookie, I believe, out of Mississippi State. I compare him, Dwayne, to Reggie Bush. In 2006, Bush had about 1,300 total yards on 243 touches. That was 155 carries, 88 receptions, albeit Sean Payton's calling the plays. It's a good team. To me, that's the role Etienne is walking into. You've got him at RB17. What are your reasonable expectations for Travis Etienne this year?
Yeah, I think the Reggie Bush comp is a really good one. The other one is DeAndre Swift. And here's the thing, like people are all up in, like he should be a 3rd-round pick. Like Etienne, like over on FFPC already is a 3rd-round pick. You can get him in the 4th round over on Underdog. You can get him in the late 3rd, sometimes early 4th round over on DraftKings right now. So PPR, half PPR is definitely where it's at for Etienne. Less interested in him in standard unless, the ADP is cheaper. But basically the way he's priced right now, all you need him to do is earn the passing down role, which we're fairly confident he's going to do. He was a really good receiver out of the backfield at Clemson. If you look at his PFF receiving grade, it got better every single year at Clemson. Well, started off low as a 60.5, then a 44, which he just wasn't out there that often. But then in his final 2 years, a 78.5 and a 90.9 in 2020, which is super high, right, for a receiving grade in college. And so Etienne did work a little bit past the line of scrimmage, which we like to see as far as ADOTs go. He wasn't just a swing pass type of guy. So really the profile we're looking for as far as a back coming out of college that can catch the ball. And right now, if you're getting Etienne in round 3, all he needs to do is lock down 35 to 40% of the rushing attempts and handle the passing downs. And he's going to pay off his 3rd-round ADP. If James Robinson goes on the pup and just isn't himself coming off of an Achilles from December, and maybe, Edwin Porras said immediately chop 10 to 20, 10, I don't want to misquote him, 10 to 15 or 10 to 20% off of what he was before trying to come back from this Achilles. And remember, this is a guy that has 0 draft capital. We've still got Trent Baalke in charge in the front office, even though we've got a new coaching staff. Trent Baalke spent the 1st-round pick on Travis Etienne. They have a receiving core with a lot of questions. Yes, they added to it in the offseason, but the Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Laviska Shenault, Marvin Jones, none of those guys are 25, 30% target share guys. This is going to be Evan Ingram, same thing. This is going to be spread around. There's a real opportunity that Etienne could see 15 to 20% of the targets. So if you look back even at Peterson's offenses, yes, he has mixed things up. You're getting, based on Etienne's ADP right now, that's kind of priced in. Like, if he was a mid-2nd round pick, I would get it. I'd be like, okay, now we got to really think about this. But as a 3rd rounder, to me, you're basically buying at Etienne's floor right now in a PPR format. And if for some reason he does just take over, let's say Javonte Williams Javonte Williams. Let's say that James Robinson goes on the PUP and just misses the first 4 weeks. It's not 6 weeks anymore. You miss 4 weeks. What if Etienne just blows up in that period? I mean, is James Robinson even going to hardly get on the field after that? Maybe not. There's just a lot of outs for Etienne to, I think, provide more value on top of, the ADP that you're getting him at. He has upside to be a top 6 back. I hear a lot of people come on Twitter, well, what about the red zone? What about the inside the 5? He's going to have to share attempts. Yeah, if we thought he was going to get all those things, he'd be a first-round pick, not a third-round pick. So that's the big point. Again, it's about the ADP and where you're getting the player. We love player profiles. We love looking at their talent, their situation, all these things. But the rule of thumb is don't fall in love with any just one player if the ADP is not right. And for me, with Etienne and Javonte Williams, the ADP is it's great on them right now, and so you want to take advantage.
Yeah, good player, shitty team, could be trailing a lot, tons of dump offs. Think of the garbage time. Also, imagine you get him in the third round. Say you start out, you grab like Austin Eckler, come back in the second round, you get a wide receiver, maybe like we talked about AJ Brown or somebody there. And then the third round, your RB2 is Travis Etienne. Yeah, boom, boom, boom. PPR upside to the moon.
He's also, you get him at the end of the third round. So for the folks that want to start off with, Devontae Adams and CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs and Mike Evans, like these wide receiver combos, and you can still come back and get a potential top 6 RB, like that's what you're looking for in your draft strategy. If you're thinking about starting your draft with 2 wide receivers and you're looking at who's your third round pick, it's Travis Etienne. Like he's going to be the pick. Like if he's there, so you have to be careful because he will get sniped from you. And his ADP probably is going to continue to climb. But right now, especially over on Underdog, like you can take complete advantage of Travis Etienne.
Yeah. I won plenty of leagues years ago targeting Reggie Bush for a couple seasons because of that exact same role. And I think that's what we're looking at with Travis Etienne. All right, one more here for you, Dwayne. And we all know there's only one way to truly draw hype on the internet, and that is to post a shirtless photo of yourself. I plan on breaking the internet later this weekend when I post some casual pool selfies. But besides that, Saquon Barkley has set hearts ablaze with his recent workout photos. Now, Dwayne, I got to ask this. Why are people surprised that athletes are jacked? So you've got guys in their mid-20s who work out all day for their job. Why wouldn't they be ripped? It makes no sense to me. People are like tripping over themselves. Like, oh my God, did you know that Saquon Barkley is in shape? Did you know DK Metcalf's in shape? Like, no shit, buddy. Anyways, Barkley he's like a super lightning round here for drafters this summer. Here's a guy who at one point in his career was a top 5 overall pick. Now you got him at RB12. And Underdog, his ADP is 20th overall at RB10. So you're slightly lower than the room. Now I'm in on Barkley simply because in late round 2, if you went wide receiver in round 1, he's a massive upside play. Say you take, like we were just talking about, Jamar Chase or Cooper Kupp, middle of round 1 here. You come back with Barkley in 2, you're swinging for the fences. We're trying to win the league here, folks, not finish in 5th. All right. Now, some folks are going to say, well, you finish there anyways after Saquon gets hurt, but anybody can get hurt. If we knew health, we'd win every league we were in. So
yeah, and Edwin Porras has come on, with Ian and talked about this. He doesn't think Saquon is at additional risk for injuries. So the people that really study this, I think there's a couple of other folks.
That's how he got hurt.
Yeah, and so some of this has been unfortunate, but there just isn't that much concern, honestly, from the experts around Saquon Barkley's health. They feel good about him, and so I'm listening to them. I'm not listening to the fear of, oh my God, Saquon's burned me however many years in a row and he got hurt. Same thing with CMC, right? But Barkley, I actually have at RB7, so I have him as my 14th player overall. So I love him. I have a ton of exposure to Saquon Barkley. You can get him in the second round, getting a 25-year-old back that's going to play every down. I mean, that's a former first-round pick. We know he's got the pedigree. Like, there's really honestly not anything to not like if you can get yourself past the fact of thinking that he's injury prone when he's probably not. Could he get hurt again this year? Yes. And then people are going to be like, see, he told you he's injury prone. But, listening to the professionals talk about it, like, Barkley carries a similar risk really to all the other running backs. And so once I know that, and now I know he gets to play in this scheme with the bowl, there's a lot of questions at receiver, honestly, for the Giants. We like Kenny Golladay. Okay. We like Kadarius Toney. but it's not like we know these guys are going to come out and blow up. Like we could have a scenario where Saquon Barkley gets 20% of the targets on this team, right? They added Wan'Dale Robinson. They do have a lot of guys, that work intermediate and short, right? Which could, challenge Barkley for targets. But it's just so easy to scheme targets to the running backs because they get the good matchups. They're immediately get a cushion, in coverage because they're lining up in the backfield. It's just, if a team really wants to get a running back 20% of the targets, they can. You can manufacture those, especially with a player like Barkley. So, I love him. I just think that it's pretty simple. 25 years old, has the pedigree, every down back. Like, what are we doing?
Playing for a contract. That's the other huge thing, because the Giants likely will not pick up an extension on him for next year unless he, I think they kind of want him to blow up. Then he could walk away and get a comp pick for him, but that's neither here nor there. Well, Dwayne, that's going to wrap it up. That's all the questions I had for you for today. So you excited to kick off your 4th of July weekend?
Yeah, man. We're going to do some hanging out this weekend with some friends. Going to do some stuff on Sunday, probably take pretty low key, on next Monday. But, we've got a firework ban here now. So, it's so dry and hot here in Texas.
Boy.
Like, yeah, my yard, it's like needs to be watered like twice. I don't even want to see my water bill. I don't want to see my water bill this month. But yeah, man, we're looking forward to it. 4th of July weekend's always fun.
We hope everybody out there listening has a great 4th of July. If you want to catch up on some of our great kind of evergreen content we put out in the off season, go over to the YouTube page, search Fantasy Football Hustle. Make sure you subscribe. And of course, leave us a 5-star review over on iTunes. So for Dwayne, I'm Brian Drake. Thank you, folks, for hanging out with us. We'll be back with some more new content real soon. And of course, we'll be doing a bunch of underdog drafts. Promo code HUSTLE and get a deposit bonus up to $100. Take care, folks. Enjoy yourself. Be safe. And remember to never get out hustled.